progressive overload, but for your mind. Let's talk about it. So progressive overload for your mind. Let's talk about it. So I'm first of all going to introduce the idea of progressive overload. So for those who don't know, when you go to the gym, the idea of progressive overload is that you lift heavy and then every workout you bump the weight up, but only the tiniest, weeniest amount that you can boost, okay? The absolute tiniest. And you keep doing that until you can't do it no more. And then maybe you'll work out for a bit, come down a little bit, 10 to 15% of the weight, and then work your way back up until you get to a new high and come down a little bit and do that over and over again until you're a jacked monster, big jacked boy. So I bring this up because I think it's kind of a cool comparable concept when I think about like personal development, personal growth, in coaching concepts. So to take this more into the mental realm, I think about this with habits and developing healthy, sustainable habits. So the brain doesn't really change that quickly. It can logically, emotionally, it doesn't. Which is why it takes a lot of time and empathy and space and presence to enable change in others. When we can be open with ourselves and open with somebody else, we can work towards developing real impactful change in our lives and habits. I truly believe that. And the idea of progressive overload, I think, latches quite nicely onto habitual change. So when we want to make a little change, we want to make a big change, right? When we feel like things aren't right, we want to go, oh, man, this all sucks. I need to change, because we hit like a rock bottom point, or we like look at ourselves in the mirror and we're like really fat, which is like what happened for me, or something else, significant changes in our lives, then we jump to the big change. But that's not what you should do. You should progressive overload your life, okay? So if you want to go to the gym, don't do everything at once. Progressive overload. And that, I'm going to be very concrete with, can look like just walking to the gym as the first light rep, right? When you start out lifting weight, you don't know what you can lift yet because you've not done it much before. So you need to take it slow and steady and not put a ton of weight on first. You just progressively increase the amount until you get used to a certain load, and then you can progress onto a new load. The same thing works with habits. So James Clear's book on Atomic Habits is fantastic about this. It talks about habit stacking. Habit stacking is kind of like progressive overload for habits in a lot of ways when you think about it. You do a habit and you add a little bit more on, and you add a little bit more on here, and you add a little bit more on there. But just like with progressive overload, when you don't do it for a while, it crumbles and your progress slips back. You need a good reason to keep doing this, okay? You need to grieve certain things in your life, and you need to want to push yourself a little bit more, okay? That is an emotional choice, okay? It's not logical. I don't care what any of you gym bros say, man. It's about how you feel. It's not about your logic box. I don't apply when we think about change, because change is cognitively taxing. Change pushes us to do things we don't like to do. It's no wonder the older we get, the less mentally flexible we get, where we're kind of like, hey man, I'm not going to do a change here. I'm going to do the same thing I've always done. Because change is hard. Change comes with risks. Change comes with unknowns that result in our demise. That's why our brains have developed to be risk averse, especially in a world where we have a lot of information, right? So information can reduce our capacity to make a decision because of decision overwhelm, information overwhelm, right? We're not wired for absurd quantities of information. We're wired to work off our gut and our feelings most of the time, and just act, which is what most of us do. Is all of us pretty much do, whether we admit it or not. We do it in one way or another. So progressive overload is a really good kind of framing to put on how we process emotions as well. We progressively improve our ability to sit with deeper and darker feelings, and progressively share a little more with the people that are safe and accepting of who we are, and that's how we grow and change. Okay, so if you want to grow and change, this is why kind of accountability groups are great, but also where they fuck up is we celebrate the wins and we punish the losses, and we kind of judge people a little too much when people fail. Failing is quintessential, right? Again, back to the progressive overload analogy. If you lift a bunch of weight, you're going to get to a point where you can't lift any more weight, and you might hurt yourself, and you might have to come back a bit. You could call that a failure, right? Some people can emotionally go, well, I failed at lifting, I did the thing wrong. Yeah, maybe your form wasn't great, whatever. But there are things you can take out of all of this, whatever it is. You might be hopeless, and that's a thing in itself to progressively overload, right? Your hope, your ability to feel your emotions, to then feel more hope. The progressive overload could be being more present with people, right? That's hard. This idea of progressively overloading and starting with the tiniest increments, I think, is so important to sustainable change, and I want y'all to do it. I want to see you guys making your own changes, because change is hard, man, and progressively overloading your change might be the framework that helps you get from A to B. But it's going to take some time, but it's not necessarily going to take a lot of upfront commitment. Okay, again, something that people fail on with habits. You don't need to upfront commit to being a dodecahedron gigachad. You just start doing things, and you accept the outcomes of the things, and you learn from the outcomes, and that is your progressive overload rep, right? If you find it terrifying to get out the door, go down the stairs and look out the door. If you find it terrifying to leave the house, go downstairs. Next day, open the door. Don't leave, or even open the door a little bit. That's your progressive overload, my friend. This applies to everything. You might be socially anxious to talk to a girl that you have a crush on. Go and be like in their presence in not a weird way, like be in the class with them, like do things socially that are fun, in a club where they are at, just be around them, okay? And then maybe you around them a little more, and then maybe you interact with them very small way, very slight way, acknowledge them, hi, how you doing? Cool to see you, you're pretty cool, and then carry on what you're doing. You don't have to do it all at once, because if you do it all at once, that's where the intense reactions come from other people, okay, and from yourself, right? And that does not build sustainability, right? When we do extreme changes, extreme outcomes happen. And extreme outcomes don't lead to the kind of satisfaction, the deep, meaningful change that I think a lot of us want when we think something's not right. Okay? When something isn't right, you need to slow it all down and add the weight slowly up and up and up and fail down and up and up and up and fail down and up and up and up and fail down. And that's where I'm going to leave it today. You've been wonderful. I've been Will. Progressive Overload Your Life today. Thunderhawk Coaching. That's me. Come talk to me if you want to help with the progressive overloading of your life. I can help you with that. You've been cool. Goodbye.